Alonzo Harris from Training Day is among my favorite 8.
Wow. LocalScriptMan, I am motherfucking impressed. What's good, you guys? So today we'll be reacting to another LocalScriptMan video. This time it's gonna be Enneagram Type 8. If you have any suggestions what you want me to react to, it can be Enneagram, can be MBTI, anything that you think is worth reacting, just send me the link down below and I'm gonna consider it, okay?
Emotions are dead.
The 8 fixation is perhaps the easiest to understand. 8s are body types who only feel at ease when they have control over the situation.
It's a big topic of control when it comes to Enneagram 8, right? Because oftentimes it's misunderstood. You know, 8 is this controlling character. It's a guy who wants to control the environment, wants to manage the environment, and that can lead you to mistyping certain characters. You know, like some Enneagram ones, like sexual ones, can easily fall into this trap. Enneagram 8 has to feel control over his life.
This often leads to them being very confrontational, challenging the world around them, and protecting their autonomy from those who would attempt to subjugate or violate them. Here's
what drives Enneagram 8. It's lust. You know, so when an Enneagram 8 involves themselves in this confrontation, in this kind of very bold, risk-taking behaviors, why is it? This is because of lust, you know, and lust is all about that kind of insatiable desire for intensity.
8s tend to be viewed quite positively in Enneagram circles. More often than not, the 8 is understood as the no-bullshit fighter with a heart of gold who protects their friends and yada yada, which can be true. But my goal with this series is not to highlight positive characteristics because the Enneagram isn't about positive characteristics. It's about the different types of brokenness. Any positive trait or skill associated with a certain Enneagram fixation is a secondary side effect of the core issue. 5s are said to be very organized and good with abstract ideas.
No, you know, 5s are not described as organized, conscientious. This is not really what you think of 5. 6 core, yes. You know, they're conscientious. 1 core is yes, but not 5s.
Yeah, that'll happen when you spend all of your time hiding in your own brain because you're terrified of the outside world. And 8s are tough and protective and forward, but you can't stop there. You have to ask why.
This is what I like what he's doing here. It's not just let's look at the behaviors, right, guys? It's about why they're doing the behaviors, and that's what Enneagram typing is all about. Sometimes when I type people or I talk to people who are confused about their type, they kind of tell me about the superficial qualities. You know, I'm this way, I'm that way, and it's like, sure, you're this way. Why are you this way? Why are you doing this kind of behavior? Well, because I don't know, it makes me feel this way, so that's why I do it. That's not enough. Dig deeper.
How does that serve them? Well, 8s come from environments where on some level they had to fight to get their needs met. They learned from a young age that they had to toughen up, which included shutting themselves off to emotion. You can know an 8 for years and never see their feelings. It's very rare for them to be vulnerable because in their subconscious mind, vulnerability equals death.
I like this because he does say in their subconscious mind, and what he said about the Enneagram 8s, like childhood, is very true. You have someone who goes through those harsh, oppressive environments, right, growing up, to the point where they rebel against that. Everything, right? But because of experiencing the harshness of the world around them, you know, imposed by their parents, by environment, whatever, poverty, they are basically led to believe that only the strongest survive. No one's gonna have empathy for you. No one's gonna love you. No one's gonna have sympathy for you. So you need to suck it the fuck up. Right? You need to be thick-skinned. That's kind of what happens. There's a desensitization that happens in the psyche of the Enneagram 8, which almost creates this callousness of the mind.
You gotta stay in control. So there's a few typical 8 stories, but
the whole lifestyle of the 8, the whole behavior is so that they're not in touch with their vulnerability. Why are they loud? Why are they intense? Why are they so direct? Why are they so confrontational? Because that is what makes them avoid being in touch with this kind of part of vulnerability. They're not really aware of it. They're not in touch with it.
One of them is about the 8 character letting down their defenses and allowing themselves to be vulnerable, usually in the context of parenthood or love. There's a precious...
Very true. That's the transformation. When empathy is now weakness. Feeling bad because you did something is now weakness. When saying, hey, I'm sorry is now weakness, right? When being compassionate is now weakness. When giving in and avoiding a conflicting situation is now weakness, it is simply being wise. Accepting love and loving becomes now something that through transformation makes you whole.
No one has ever seen this side of me, quality to 8s in these stories.
So time heals all wounds, I guess.
It wasn't time that did it.
The idea of an unexpected soft side is quintessential eightness. Joel Miller's story in The Last of Us is an interesting twist on this because it is the classic eight story of rediscovering his heart, but when he does, it leads him to make a very questionable decision. These are really my favorite kinds of arcs, the morally neutral ones. Instead of thinking of a character changing from bad to good or good to bad, you think in terms of actualization. So the story could end with the character doing a bad thing, but in the context of that character, it's kind of healthy in a weird sort of way, like you're proud of them. But there are two other kinds of eights.
So he used Joel as an example. I don't agree with it at all. It's not his fault in a sense. How many people might, hate vulnerability or be so tough, and then they let someone in and they feel more okay with being vulnerable. But does that make them an 8? So it's again an issue of, do they have the pre-existing core traits? Do you see last?
Stories. The second is rising to a position of leadership. See, 8's desire for power doesn't necessarily mean they have world domination plans. It just means they need to have power over their immediate environment. Sometimes that environment is a small group they command, sometimes it's an army of one. 8's will detach from society and become outlaws or hermits. And so
True, pretty true. Hermits, it's possible, like an SPA. Outlaws, oh my god, that's very
this 8 becomes a leader story is about this stubborn outlaw 8 being called upon to rejoin society. It's the classic Western trope of the gunfighter who's going to protect the town. Like, oh, please, Wolverine, we need you. No, I don't want to. I hate everyone. Oh, but you're so cool. We need you.
That's funny.
We need you, Wolverine. The final 8 story is the fall from power. This
In Logan, yeah, he was very 8.
is your Macbeth type, your paranoid ruler desperately trying to hold their empire together. Alonzo Harris from Training Day is among my favorite 8.
Wow. LocalScriptMan, I am motherfucking impressed because you use the best example that has ever lived when it comes to trying to portray what lust is, the ugliness of Enneagram 8, right? This is, if you want the ugliness of the Enneagram 8, this is the perfect character. I'm actually shocked because, man, this is amazing.
See, Alonzo beat up a Russian mobster at a casino, and he's trying to hold on to his
The guy had very shit impulse control, very arrogant guy who just thinks he's gonna go around and doing whatever the fuck he wants. Kind of got into an argument with someone who he shouldn't have, beat the shit out of them, right?
power by any means necessary. So he kills and steals his way across Los Angeles in an attempt to resolve the situation and pay back the mob. The more he tightens his grip, the more control slips through his fingers. The people he subjugated rise up against him. He explodes in a pathetic tough guy rant, and then he gets whacked.
That's where he's in touch with vulnerability. That's why he reacted the way he did, because he was getting in touch with the vulnerability. And the 8 core mechanism works. No, we need to, this is our defense mechanism, right? Big, tough, strong, denial. You ain't got anything on me. And this is kind of what happens with Alonzo. He's vulnerable.
With all of the ultimate badass stereotypes surrounding them, it's important to remember that 8s can be just as pathetic as everybody else. Sometimes pure.
This is why you should never glamorize Enneagram 8. Enneagram 8 it's when it's stoic. It's the stoic sigma. And this guy is very reactive. And because he yells and he's reactive, he's something else. He's Enneagram 6. Like, don't be brain dead, okay?
For gut energy is the way to get something done. But in a civilized society, you won't get far without diplomacy and compromise. So as the falling 8 loses control, they become progressively more alien to people around them. At their lowest, there is no honor, no trust, no friendship, just a bull in a china shop. When
very SPA too,
is falling apart, But the 8 meltdown's counterpart scene is the 8 emotional release, the Furiosa scream. 8s need to accept their weakness if they are to grow. That moment when they allow themselves to cry, to be vulnerable, that's a key beat if you're doing a positive 8 arc. They gotta let their emotions out. Any variation of gang or mafia culture is also going to be very 8 coded.
This guy's not an 8. He's actually like an SP9 probably. But not, why 8? Why lust?
Take what's yours, assert power in your environment, etc. I had the pleasure of speaking with a very successful screenwriter, and this guy has a lot of mob connections, mostly dudes in prison, and he told
I liked and I appreciated the kind of like a low-key humble brag. He's like a screenwriter, successful one, and he has a lot of mob connections, aka people in prison. What fucking mob connections he has in prisons? Most people who are in prison are just nothing more than degenerates, okay? And those people, mob, it's not mob. And what the nowadays mob is just mean you're like a petty fucking gangster who has low IQ, so you end up in prison. No.
Told me something about gangsters that I'll never forget. He told me these killers that he knows, they have no ego.
Most people in prison are like one of the most petty, cringe-inducing individuals, right? Who are so fragile and reactive that if you say anything to them, they will fucking have a meltdown and they'll try to kill you. Either kill you or try to fight you or just spurg on you. Literally. So this kind of like, yeah, killers, they don't give a gangsters. Those are not gangsters, those are petty criminals.
And I was shocked by this. So I was like, wait, you're telling me someone like Frank Lucas doesn't have an ego? And he's like, nah. To unpack what he meant, I'm going to talk about Freud's stuff, and I'm just going to explain it the way I understand it. So to all the people who are really into that, sorry, not sorry if I don't say everything perfectly. Basically, the three parts of the mind are the id, which is subconscious impulsive desires, ego, which is the rigid moral voice that tells us what we should do, and the ego, which consciously ties everything.
You pissed me the see? Why would you piss me the off? This was working very well. This video was amazing. This mob boss story, successful screen at that. He has many connections. If I was you, I'll be like, wait, you're connected to who?
Together into a unified idea of self. A lot of people think ego just means every form of unpleasantness. So that guy's mean, oh, we'll say he has a big ego. But really the ego is a neutral force that justifies all of the other factors.
I mean, he has a point. This is true, right? This is true for the Enneagram 8. It's true in the context of what he's talking about. But if we talk about ego as in like, oh, he has a big ego, he has an inflated sense of self, he thinks he's based, he thinks he's this, he's very arrogant. Well, that would be more kind of conventional understanding of ego. And in that kind of understanding, the 8 is one of the most narcissistic and arrogant types, as per Naranjo. But it's true that in the Freudian psychology and the theory he's using right now, he's correct here, for sure.
In a person. Egoing is a skill, so a person who's very good at justifying all of their impulses and emotions and constructing a definition of self that functions within reality, that's what it means to have a truly powerful ego. Ego equals your internal justification machine, and 8s suck at this more than any other type, because 8s primarily operate from the id, the body, the I want. They're gut types, they're the guttiest gut types, and remember what I said about gut types and dysregulation, no thoughts in that brain. When a 3 is
I live in the external world, I react to the external world. It's pretty simple. Which probably can make me more impulsive, but yeah, not to say I'm brain dead, by the way. Need to fucking, all right? I'm not brain dead.
Dysregulated, their ego starts working on overdrive. All of their energy goes into how do I arrange reality in a way that makes me the hero, and they tend to be very good at spinning this lie. You see it across all types to a degree, but with 8s, more often than not, they'll kind of just drop the act and go into their bodies. They're mad, they're gonna let it out. They just want the thing, and they don't know how to justify it. Their ego is so out of practice. Like, listen to Marty trying to justify his affair.
Think man can love 2 women at once.
8s suck at this. If you back them into a corner and try to get them to show their cards philosophically.
I don't think I mentioned about Marty from the movie True Detective, the TV show. I'm not sure he's an Enneagram 8. I did not particularly think he was an Enneagram 8. I considered even Self-Preservation 3. He seemed kind of driven to maintain this perfect life, perfect image of his family, while in the end, when in all actuality, he was nothing more than a degenerate. I'm not like hyper against this take. If someone can explain why he would be an 8, which subtype, like an SP8 or something, but
quickly, you're not going to get some articulate answer. Here's another one.
Yeah, give him credit though. Shit, he worked the system. Deserves his freedom.
Even the
this is perfect. This is perfect.
more actualized 8s who dabble in justice and service will still handle a confrontation like, you bad, destroy. I'll talk about this more in the one video, but justice comes from the gut center. It's a type of impulse.
Very true. That was perfect.
And 8s, 9s, and 1s will all exhibit that impulse very strongly. It's just that 8s really don't filter it through anything. They just act. Like, I don't care what Khal Drogo's life philosophy is. I just want to see him kill dudes. Whereas you'd be hard-pressed to write a 3 or a 5 who doesn't have some ongoing personal narrative about who they are and why everything is going to be okay. But at their lowest, 8s will just shrug and say might makes right, if indeed they say anything at all. Don't mistype your characters for 8s just because they're in power. Yes, 8s are the type that pursues power for its own sake, but 3s will come to power if it satisfies it.
Social 3 can be very power-oriented. What about Social 2? Which is actually probably much more accurate to say in this case. The true conqueror, right, of groups, the person who wants to be on top of the hierarchy. They are the most powerful. So Social 2 would actually be very fitting here. Not even the 8.
needs. Ones will come to power because they feel like they and only they are worthy. Head types will sometimes just accidentally stumble into positions of power, which is kind of funny. The 8 as the protector is also common. Basically, that armor of don't mess with me can be extended out to other people. This is all well and good, but to squeeze narrative juice out of it, you have to look at the why. Is this really pure benevolence? What happens when the 8's protected people become more powerful than the 8? A lot of time with 8s, you'll get a sense of, you're my people and I protect you, but you have to stay weak and let me control you.
He's very correct. In the book, 27 Personalities in Search of Being, Naranjo actually breaks this down. He talks about how the 8 is capable of being very protective over what he deems to be his. And I know it sounds very objectifying, but that's how he kind of words it. And he says, as long as they don't interfere with the Enneagram 8's power, right, and territory.
It's the classic man's man, domineering father. So to fully heal an 8 complex means to be a servant, to completely surrender oneself to another person or to a cause.
I don't know about Shrek. I type him self-preservation 9. Is self-preservation 8 so bad? No, but he just seems like a dude who wanted to be left alone and live on a fucking swamp. You know.
Vizark in Arcane Season 2 seems to be headed this way. She's going to reluctantly join a system for the greater good. This is good for 8s. The ability to submit themselves is a sign of growth. In terms of personality, 8s tend to be the straightest of talkers, bordering on rude. In leadership situations, they typically don't have the social polish or persuasion abilities of 3s, because
that's true, you know, social 2, for example, social 3, very good. Very good. Just image types. They're very good at being able to craft a certain presentation that benefits them the most. 8s, even if they try to be diplomatic, even if they try, there's so many, they're rough around the edges. There's so many things that just go to shit. Even if they try to manage their image, they're just not as half as successful.
On an instinctive emotional level, 8s do not care if you dislike them. They're not looking for your approval. That's just not a factor in their brains. If they do have PR skills, obtaining those skills was almost certainly an uphill battle, which isn't to say that 8s aren't smart. Intelligence is not a factor on the Enneagram. I've met more and less conscious people in every type. It's only to say certain forms of intelligence.
He mentions that intelligence is not a sign of like a type. It's true. And besides, we know many very, very intellectual Enneagram 8s typed in history by Naranjo, like Karl Marx. We know Socrates was typed by Naranjo.
Clash with certain type fixations. Nothing about strategy and planning run counter to 8ness. Sucking up to a boss to get a promotion, though, that's not going to fly. 8s really do tend to occupy the stereotypical bad boy, bad girl archetype. Devil may care, impulsive, confrontational, you get it.
But true, it's nice that he says impulsive. He's very right.
They'll have wiggle room in terms of presentation. 8s will present in ways that make them feel strong and in control. So maybe they got a
True, because that's their self-perception. That's their self-image of strength, self-image of power.
Fast car with a big engine. Maybe they got a punk thing going. Maybe they channel their anger in some unique way, like a musician.
I didn't join a band so I could talk about my feelings. Joined it so I could hit my feelings with sticks.
Yes, but I thought in the spider-punk thing, hobby was this Enneagram 8.
This is true of all types, but I just want to remind everybody that your Enneagram number is something you have, not something you are. So
I don't get that personally. Like, I don't understand you don't have anything. You are it. And that's not to say, oh, so I'm my label. It's not to say that. It's more so who you are is who you are, and that label simply describes who you are. But it's not what you have, you know? What the fuck? It's not Pokemon.
if you say, I'm going to make my protagonist an 8, you've simply taken the first step. You've decided on a few key moments for that character. But there are plenty of other choices you have to make that the Enneagram can't make for you. Their relationship with other characters, whatever melodrama you got going on, how they engage with the plot. It's just good to know their types. You have a guiding light to inform how they might react to all of that stuff, should you need it. Another thing that seems very 8-coded is revenge. Revenge is tricky.
Very true. Vengeance, after all, right?
Because while it does correspond to the gut center, it's not an Enneagram thing. Revenge is a...
It's not an Enneagram thing, because the sexual 4 can be vengeful, right? One core can be... Many types can be vengeful. Although, if we were to really show which type is the most vengeful, it would probably be 8.
10th form of bullshit that can stand on its own narratively. Anybody can...
Getting even. Bringing justice. Even if it's excessive.
Revenge is a valid emotional core for a story. You don't need to weave other ideas and philosophies in. But in a story about a gut type, where the whole point of the character is that they need to stop following their gut, it's easy to frame revenge as an extension of the character's core bullshit. So yeah, overall, 8s are one of the easier types to tell stories about, but I personally find 8s more interesting in non-8 environments. You need to make your 8 emotionally and psychologically uncomfortable if you want to explore the full depth of their humanity. That's 8, okay, bye.
So we've analyzed Enneagram 2 by him. We've analyzed Enneagram 5, right? I think so. It was 5 and 2, unless I'm forgetting something. And 8. I would say 8 has been the best one so far. And he's done a very good job with 8. For the purpose of filmmaking, what he did works very well. And as far as videos go that talk about Enneagram 8, this is probably one of the best because he actually gets some of the characters correct. Obviously, there will always be fucking mistakes and, you know, we can nitpick shit. And because we're geeks, we are mega geeks, you know, we have access to the information that other people don't. So can't blame him. That's not his shit. His shit is filmmaking, and that's the only thing he gives a shit about. Tell me what you guys think about this video, what he got right, what he got wrong, and if you have any other videos you want me to react, again, drop a link down below. I'm out, I'm Chowers, and I'm bouncing.